You're listening to the New Hope Church podcast. To learn more about what we're doing on the south side of Indianapolis, you can check us out online at becomehope.com. If you like what you're hearing here, be sure you check out one of our companion podcasts. We have a daily devotional podcast called Let's Find Out Together, as well as an apologetics podcast called Salty Saints. Let's listen in as today's talk comes from Randy Spade.
Welcome to New Hope Church. I'm so glad that you've taken time out of your busy day to spend it here with us as we worship the Lord. My name is Randy, one of the pastors here. We're in the middle of a sermon series called Strongholds. In this series, what we've been doing is we've been looking at the first 5 kings of Israel. We've looked at 3 so far. And here's what we've found. Saul suffered from a desire for approval. He had a lack of self-esteem, and that just seemed to drive him at every step to do whatever he needed to do to be accepted by the people around him. Then we looked at King David. Now, he suffered from a desire for power. David displayed power in his conquests, military conquests and personal conquests. We saw his relationship with Bathsheba was ultimately about his desire to exert power even over the people around him. Solomon suffered from a desire for control. He tried to control every aspect of his life, opening his life up to ever-increasing possibilities through wealth, through military might, and through women. Today, we're going to look at Solomon's son, Rehoboam. Now, you may or may not have ever heard of Rehoboam. It's with Rehoboam that the kingdom of Israel is actually split into 2. They had a civil war. And as a result of that civil war, they were divided. The divided kingdom comes to be known as Israel, 10 tribes to the north, and Judah, 2 tribes to the south, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. So why did they split? What was the issue? We know about our own civil war, what its issue was. What was theirs about? Well, to understand that split, we actually have to go way back into King Solomon's reign. Now, you know that Solomon built a lot. I mean, a huge amount. He built this massive temple that occupied a full quarter of the city of Jerusalem. Think about that. Think about Indianapolis and divide off a quarter of the territory dedicated to one building, the temple. He built a palace for himself. Scripture says it took him 7 years to build the temple. And the next verse says, and he took 13 to build his own palace. So you get the idea that the author there, he's kind of letting you in on a little secret without actually coming right out and saying it. But it goes beyond that. He built a palace for the princess of Egypt. He built terraces. He built a fleet of ships. He built cities. He amassed horses, and he had to have some place to keep those horses. So he built a city of stables. In Megiddo, a city to the north, they have uncovered the area in which Solomon, they figured this comes from Solomon's area. There is a massive horse stable there. Cavalry barns. He built temples for other gods. So how did he do all of that? Well, King Solomon conscripted a labor force of 30,000 men from all Israel. He sent them to Lebanon in shifts, 10,000 every month, so that each man would be 1 month in Lebanon, 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of this labor force, and then Solomon also had 70,000 common laborers, 80,000 quarry workers in the hill country, 3,600 foremen to supervise the work. You add all that up together and it comes almost to 200,000 people. At the king's command, they quarried large blocks of high-quality stone, shaped them to make the foundation of the temple. Men from the city of Geba helped Solomon and Hiram's builders prepare the timber and stone for the temple. What you basically have in a conscripted labor force is taxation. Solomon's taxation was 33%. 2 months you worked for yourself, 1 month you worked for me. 4 months out of the year, you come and you work for Solomon. You're not paid for that. You just do the labor. Now we first meet Jeroboam, who becomes the king of the nation of Israel in the north, in Solomon's labor force. Solomon was rebuilding and supporting terraces, repairing the walls of the city of his father David. And Jeroboam was a very capable young man. When Solomon saw how industrious he was, he put him in charge of the labor force from the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, descendants of Joseph. So the first time we meet Jeroboam, we're told he's a very capable leader. But then this happens. One day as Jeroboam was leaving Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah from Shiloh met him along the way. Ahijah was wearing a new cloak. The two of them were alone in a field, and Ahijah took hold of the new cloak that he was wearing. And he began to tear it. He tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Here's 10 of the pieces, take them. Because this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I'm about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and I'll give 10 of the tribes to you." Whoa. Now this happens in an open field. They were alone when it started, but people could see it. And I imagine that Ahijah, it wasn't just rip, 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 take these 10. I imagine it was prophetic. He made a scene about tearing his cloak. And just so you understand, that leaves him standing there in his underwear. That's a sight. And as the word spreads, the prophet's out in the field in his underwear, people go to see. I think I probably would have. That's not something you see every day. And he takes 10 of the pieces of that cloak and he hands it to Jeroboam. And he says, probably in a fairly loud voice, "God has torn the nation of Israel from Solomon's descendant. You have 10 of them." Well, guess what happens next? Probably, understandably, excuse me, I need to finish what he said, and then we'll read the next. "I'll leave Solomon one tribe for the sake of my servant David, for the sake of Jerusalem, which I've chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. For Solomon has abandoned me and worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, Molech, the god of the Ammonites." Remember that. Molech, the god of the Ammonites. Molech was the god that he would be always depicted sitting down. He had a furnace behind, and they would stoke the furnace until the statue was red hot. Then they would place a baby in his hands. That's how they did the child sacrifice to Molech. He hasn't followed my ways and done what's pleasing in my sight. He hasn't obeyed my decrees and regulations as David, his father, did. So what happens? Well, Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam. Understandably so, right? Solomon has already, when he first took over the kingdom, killed some of the people that he thought might try to take the throne from him. He tries to kill Jeroboam too. But Jeroboam fled to King Shishak of Egypt. This is probably the pharaoh known as Shishak the first. He stayed there until Solomon died. Okay, so now we have Jeroboam in Egypt. Now he's still who he was. He's a capable young leader. He stands out from the rest. Even in Egypt, apparently, he stood out. We find out later, 1 Kings 14. Pharaoh attacks Judah. Not Israel, but Judah. He's probably doing it as a favor to Jeroboam, who he met while Jeroboam was living in Egypt. But for now, Jeroboam is just a prestigious visitor from Israel. That's a nation that Egypt actually has a treaty with. Well, Solomon dies. And Rehoboam, Solomon's son, is next in line. Rehoboam, son of Solomon, was king in Judah. He was 41 years old when he became king. And he reigned for 17 years in Jerusalem, the city the Lord had chosen from among all the tribes of Israel as a place to honor his name. Rehoboam's mother was Naamah, an Ammonite woman. Two things here. He was 41 when he started to reign. We know that Solomon's reign was 40 years. What that means is that Rehoboam grew up in the palace. Rehoboam, from the time that he was born, he was prince of Israel. It was already determined that Rehoboam would replace Solomon when Solomon eventually died. But Solomon was a relatively young man when he began to reign. 40 years, Rehoboam grows up in Israel. And his mother was not even Jewish. His mother was an Ammonite woman. Remember what I said before? The Ammonites worshiped the god of Molech. And one of the things that they would do is they would stoke that furnace until the god's hands were red hot and place a baby in it. Rehoboam escaped from that. He escaped from that probably because he was the chosen heir. Rehoboam grew up in a palace. All he knew was luxury. He was a prince of Israel in a time of prosperity. So he becomes king. And when he becomes king, his subjects come to him. Rehoboam went to Shechem, where all Israel had gathered together to make him king. Now, so far, David was crowned king in Shechem. Solomon was actually crowned king in Shechem. So he goes too. He goes to Shechem. He's crowned king. And when Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, heard of this, he returned from Egypt because he'd fled to Egypt to escape from King Solomon. The leaders of Israel summoned him. They recognized that Jeroboam was a capable leader. They remembered him. And this is years later. This is a couple of decades later. But they still remembered Jeroboam. They knew him as a man who could lead. So they summoned him. And they went to speak to Rehoboam. Your father was a hard master, they said. Lighten the harsh labor. Lighten the heavy taxes that your father imposed on us, and we'll be your loyal subjects. Rehoboam said, give me 3 days to think this over. Come back for my answer. So the people went away. Okay. So Rehoboam spends that time wisely. He talks to his father's counselors, the men who had counseled King Solomon. King Solomon was an incredibly successful king. They were good counselors. They had their heads screwed on straight. Rehoboam goes to them and says, what should I do? And they say, pay attention to what they're asking. Lighten the load. After all, what are you going to build? The construction is done. You've got cities, you've got fortresses, you've got stables. All of the construction is done. Tell them that you're going to listen to them. Tell them that you're going to lighten the load. You can still have a conscripted labor force. Just don't do 1 out of every 3 months. Rehoboam goes to his friends, his buddies who grew up with him in the palace, his buddies who also knew a life of luxury. What do you think I ought to do? They said, you tell those jerks that are coming asking for freedom from all of the work that they don't know what hard work is yet. You tell them that your pinky is bigger than your father's waist. You tell them, my dad whipped you with whips. I'm going to tie scorpions at the end of the whips and whip you with scorpions. And Rehoboam heard him and said, yeah, I like it. Let's do that. So they come back. 3 days later, Jeroboam, all the people returned to hear Rehoboam's decision, just the king had ordered. But Rehoboam spoke harshly to the people, for he rejected the advice of the older counselor and followed the counsel of his younger advisors. He told the people, my father laid heavy burdens on you. I'm going to make them heavier. My father beat you with whips. I'm going to beat you with scorpions. Well, guess what? They didn't like the answer. Surprise, surprise, right? When all Israel realized that the king had refused to listen to them, they responded, down with the dynasty of David. We have no interest in the son of Jesse. Back to your homes, O Israel. Look out for your own house, O David. So the people of Israel returned home. Rehoboam continued to rule over the Israelites who lived in the towns of Judah. Like I said, 2 tribes. Tribe of Judah, which had by now absorbed the tribe of Simeon, and the tribe of Benjamin that also lived in this territory. Now, in the next couple of chapters, Rehoboam gets an army together to go and attack Israel, but the prophet stops him and says, God has caused this. Save your men's lives. Don't go. And he actually listens, and he doesn't go. It's a relatively bloodless coup. The northern tribes rejected Rehoboam. They rejected David's dynasty. They formed their own kingdom. It lasts for about 200 years. And now we have 2 kingdoms, a divided kingdom. To the north, Israel. To the south, Judah. All over the issue of taxation. Sound familiar? Think back to 1776, when another nation said taxation without representation is not something that we will tolerate. And here we are. So what was Rehoboam's problem? His basic problem? He grew up in the palace in a life of luxury. He felt entitled. I deserve this. I've been prepared for this my whole life. My time is now here. I'm the king. I'm the one in control. I'm the one in charge. I deserve this. His whole life, people saw him as the prince. His whole life, he was the heir apparent. So when the time came and his subjects came to him saying, please listen to us, we have a request, he said, no, I'm the one in charge. I deserve this. I am entitled to this. You think my dad was tough, you're going to get it worse from me. I deserve to live in the comfort that I'm used to. I'm entitled to it. Now, you know, entitlement is something that's really very interesting. Whenever I talk to somebody about a mentality of entitlement, they don't actually say it. But what comes across is, yes, it's horrible, and they shouldn't feel entitled. But that person over there, or that group over there, oh, they just feel so entitled, and that's wrong. You shouldn't feel entitled. But when it comes to them, well, no, I don't have a false sense of entitlement. You see, I really do deserve this. And that could be our tendency this morning, to say, oh yeah, they feel entitled, they shouldn't. I want to encourage you here to look at yourself. Don't look at anybody else. Look at yourself. We talked in a past sermon about signs of different ones of these. Here's some signs of entitlement. A self-focus. We're going to come back and talk about that. A lack of empathy. Do you think Rehoboam had a lack of empathy for the people that came to him and said, please, lessen this 33% taxation you've laid on us? Unrealistic demands. Now, I didn't get these out of Rehoboam's story. I looked up the Journal of Psychology to find signs of entitlement. Right here they are. And sure enough, Rehoboam's got them. Attention seeking. Craving more. That's at the root of what Rehoboam was after. If you don't work for me like you work for my dad, I won't get more, I'll get less. Obsessed with status. I'm the king. You need to listen to me. They expect rewards. There's a lack of accountability. There's a tendency to not help others in any way, whether that's financial or physical or emotional through encouragement. They're quick to blame others. Not my fault. I deserve this. It's their fault. They don't recognize that I deserve this. They expect to be rescued. And frequently there's a sense that the rules just don't apply to them. The bottom line, the root of entitlement is self-centeredness. It's the idea that we are owed this, because life is, after all about us. Jesus addressed this at the very beginning of his ministry. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus, right after he comes back from the desert where he spent 40 days being tempted, right after he called Peter and Andrew, James and John to follow him and be his disciples, he stood up on a mountain and he gave a sermon. That sermon sets the tone of his entire ministry. What's the first thing he says? Be humble. God blesses those who are humble. Blessed are the meek. God blesses those who are humble. They're the ones that will inherit the entire earth. A couple of verses later, God blesses those who are merciful. Another way of saying that, learn to show mercy. If you show mercy to others, you will in turn receive mercy. A couple of verses later, God blesses those who work for peace. Blessed are the peacemakers. They'll be called children of God. You're really a part of the family of God when you seek peace. Be humble. Show mercy. Work for peace. The opposite of that, you deserve this. So how do we go about doing it? Well, how do we go about becoming others focused? James 1:19 says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. One of the things that we struggle with at times when we have a disagreement with someone else is that as we are talking to them, we want to make sure that they get what we're saying. Well, seek first to understand what they're saying, and only second to be understood. Second, respect others. Romans 12:10, love each other with genuine affection. Take delight in honoring each other. That word honoring means respect each other. As we deal with other people, we must respect them. Third, I hate to break it to you, but life ain't fair. Recognize that life isn't fair. Matthew 5, Jesus himself in this Sermon on the Mount says, God gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good. He sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. Oh, it would be so nice if the evil always received bad and the good always received good. But that's not the way it works. That's not the way life works. Life isn't fair. God never promises that if you follow him, everything will be rosy. He does promise you that he will be with you at every step of every path that you walk on. He'll be there. He'll carry you along. He'll support you. And He'll help you to respond as a Christian would respond. And then finally, we got to learn from our mistakes. Proverbs 9:9 says, the godly may trip 7 times, but they get up. But one disaster is enough to overthrow the wicked. So what do? Focus on others. How do you deal with entitlement? Rehoboam's basic problem was that craving of comfort. He'd grown up in a life of luxury. He figured that he deserved it. So who are these upstarts to ask him to do something uncomfortable anyway? They just need to learn that I'm the king now. I deserve this. Now, we need to focus on others. We need to listen to others. We need to find out what makes them tick. We need to stop thinking that life is all about us. Stop wanting more and more and more. So what do? Do you feel entitled today? Now, probably. Nobody came here thinking, yes, I'm entitled. Yes, I deserve this. But do you feel entitled today? Do you have any of those characteristics of an entitled mindset? Can we go back to that slide that had the 12 characteristics? Read through these. It's hard. Don't want you to think about other people. Think about yourself. Do I do any of these? Am I guilty of a lack of empathy? I'll be honest with you. I struggle with that. I'm kind of a type A personality. I love to see things come together and work. And if they don't, if someone is saying to me, I just can't bring myself, my first tendency is not to think, poor guy, come here, let me give you a hug. My first thought is, turn around, show me your backside. I've got a gift for you. I struggle with that. Part of the reason I struggle with it because maybe down deep, I think I deserve that you do what I tell you that you got to do. Entitlement. What about you? Let's go back to the 4 questions on that last slide. What solution spoke to you the most today? Go back to the 4th slide in that list right before the big idea slide. There we go. Seek first to understand, only then to be understood. Respect. Recognize that life isn't fair. Learn from your mistakes. Does any of these things stand out to you? You sense the Lord saying, yeah, you need to work on that. Let's tackle this. Let's go back to those final 4 questions. So what do you need to do today? Pick one of those things that you need to work on and say, Lord, this is what I want to do. Help me. And then talk to somebody about this. Find someone who will hold you accountable. Pray with me today, would you? Lord Jesus, we come to you today with an ugly, ugly word that maybe, just maybe, some of us here are guilty of. Feeling that we deserve. Father, first of all, I thank you that you treat us with grace and mercy. In your mercy, you keep from us what we actually do deserve. And in your grace, you give to us what we don't deserve. Lord, we dare not feel entitled around you because you alone are worthy. You alone are King. Take our feelings of entitlement, Lord. Wrench them from our hearts. Throw them out. And allow us instead, Lord, to focus on others. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to the New Hope Church podcast. If you would do us a favor and like or subscribe on your favorite platform, we would really appreciate it. Also, if you happen to have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at questions@becomehope.com. Have a great week and know that we are praying for you as you seek to be Jesus in every corner of your world.